Hello and welcome to Crafting with Mermaid Tears. Congratulations on receiving your subscription box. I hope that you are looking forward to creating something beautiful. Today we are going to be making some fascinators, and of course they are going to have some shells on them to bring in the sea theme. You will need a pair of scissors for this craft, and you may also want a pair of tweezers, though they are not required. So you're going to put your ribbon aside and your feathers aside, and what you want to start with is your hair clip and your piece of felt. So you should have a square piece of felt. Open the little hair clip up, run your glue, and then hold this down into place. It doesn't have to be right in the middle. Maybe you want a little bit more hanging off the bottom. And you're just going to leave that to dry for a second. The reason that you're going to do the clip open like this is because you don't want to accidentally glue it shut. If you find that the stems of your flowers are a little bit too long, you can of course trim them off a little bit. So I am going to figure out where it is that I would like to place my feather colors. And I've given you a selection. Some of them you have more of than others. And if you would like to have, say, 2 yellows or 2 pinks, I only have the one, and I think I might like 2, I am just going to, of course, cut my feather there, and then I've got my 2 pieces. If you want it a little bit more feather-like, clip it at a bit of an angle. It's still not going to be perfect, but it doesn't have that same edge that it did before. So once I've got my feathers how I want them, or the number that I want, I'm going to place them, but by dry fitting them, which means I've not put any glue yet, onto the hair clip and decide how it is that I like my feathers to be arranged. So you can have fun, you can do them all together like this, you can do them around in a whirlwind, however you'd like to do it. So I think I'm going to do mine kind of around a little bit. So I'm going to go just around the base there. So I've alternated my blues and my yellows. So now that I like that, I'm going to decide if I want to throw in a pink on either side. Maybe I'll throw in the black. I think I'm going to take my white and definitely throw that here because it's my biggest one. Actually, maybe I'll do my white right across like that, and then my big one. So play around with how you'd like to do it. When you're ready to do it, just put a strip of glue kind of across the middle if you can. You don't want to glue too much of it because you might want to trim some off in a bit. So I've got my glob of glue. You can see I'm being a little bit generous with it just because I am going to be putting the petals in it. So again, I was going to do kind of an alternating style to feather it around. And as you can see, I've now run out of glue, so I'm going to top this line off again. Again, I want to try and keep it in a similar area just because I might end up wanting to cut some of my brown off later, my felt, because I don't necessarily want to be able to see it. So I'm just going to glue, and I'm going to put my last yellow. The reason for the tweezers is so that I don't have to touch the crazy glue. I can just tweezer it down so I don't get it on my hands. Very happy with how that's looking. So the next thing I said I wanted to do was to lay my white straight across. So because I'm laying my white across, I'm going to do a strip just gently down the middle of my white feathered piece. And I'm going to lay that down right on top there of my other pieces. So I've got my white one. Now I need to decide if I want to add my pink and my blacks. I think I'm going to skip out on those ones, but I'm going to take my green. I'm not going to glue my green just yet because I want to figure out now what I would like to do with my flowers. So again, I'm going to go through the process of dry fitting my flowers. to figure out where it is that I would like to have them placed on my headpiece. Now I think because this one here is so big, I'm going to put these ones kind of, if you can see there, just on top of it a little bit on that side, and again just kind of a little bit on top of it there. So I'm in between actually the flowers here. And I also gave you guys a petal, but I think instead of a petal, this is where I'm going to use my green feathers, is to have them act as the flower petals. So now that I've dry fit this, you have the option of taking a picture so that you can remember what it looks like, or of course just hopefully visually remembering. The best way to do that sometimes is to unlayer it as you put it together. So I'm going to glue my big one down first, and I'm going to do that by blooping a piece of it, the glue, onto this feather here and onto the stem. And I'm going to take it and I'm going to press it down right where I wanted it to go. Now as you can see, the leaves kind of want to pick up a little bit, and I don't really want that, so I've just added now a little bit of glue on there, and I'm going to pull it back and glue it down in place. But I didn't glue it flat because it's a flower and I want it to have a little bit of life, so I glued it kind of with a little bit of a poof to it there. So the next thing I'm going to do is take my white flower, and again I'm going to put just a little bit of glue on the petals there. And I wanted it, again, over top of this big flower a little bit. So you can see there, got it now over top of that big flower a little bit. And I'm going to do the same with this blue one. I'm going to put a bloop of glue. As you can see, I have some feathers stuck in it. Feathers like to get absolutely everywhere. And I am going to bloop that one into place. And again, this one seems to want to stick up a little bit, so I'm going to put a little bloop of glue there, take my tweezers so I don't get the glue on my hands, and hold the petal down into place. And I didn't want to use my leaf. I'm going to create that effect with my feathers. So this time I'm going to hold my two feathers together, just in a crisscross. I'm going to put glue right along both sides of it here, and still keeping my fingers crisscrossed, I'm going to slide those in to position underneath that flower, and I'm going to hold them down into place. Now it's time for me to decide if I want to use my jewels, how I want to use my shells and my glass. I'm probably going to tie a ribbon first down here, so I'm just going to do a really standard bow. You can certainly get more fancy with your bows if you'd like. I'm just going to stay nice and loose and easy and fill it out. So I want to make sure that I have both the gold parts on the top there. And I'm going to fill that out a bit. And then I'm going to cut at an angle here, just because I always think that finishes the look off a little bit, and it also helps somewhat to stop the fraying. So I've got my bow, and I'm happy with the size of it, and I'm going to glue that bow right down where there's kind of this little hole opening right here. You can use the bow, you cannot use the bow, again that is totally up to you. And now that I've got my bow down, I'm going to look at, again, what is my flower placement like? Am I happy with it, or too much of it hiding? Something's bothering me about this feather, so I'm going to try and maneuver that over here a little bit first. There are no mistakes in crafting. Everything can be fixed, or it adds a little bit of character. So because I'm not happy with this, I haven't cut my brown piece yet. I can actually add a little bit of glue there and slide this over so that it's closer with the other ones again. I think that's what was bugging me, is it had kind of wandered away. So now it's back to the other ones. Okay, so now I've got to decide where I want to put my shells. You know what? I'm not really sure. sure how I want to do my shells. I think I kind of like this one, although I was leaning towards this one at first. Yeah, I think I'm going to stick with this one, and I'm going to put my glue, big bloop came out, right along here, and I'm going to lay this down. I'm going to put just a little bit of the blue peeking there in place, and then I think I'm going to take my other shell and put it closer to the top up here. And this one's going to be interesting to glue because I have to go kind of around the edges of it. So me being me, I am definitely going to get a lot of glue on my hands, but that's okay. So now I've got this one tucked there. So that means this one here I think would look really pretty tucked right there. So I'm going to just put my glue around this one now, and oops, push that into place there. And then I'm going to decide if I'd like my jewels. I love a little bit of bling, so I'm going to put my bling probably right here just so that it's peeking out there. I've kind of hidden my blue flower, which is okay, it still looks really pretty. Alright, so I'm going to take my bling. I always think it's a good idea to put a little bit of glue right on the first bead, just because it helps it to adhere better to the surface that you have, that you're working on. If you just have the bottom part, it might not stay as well on there. Alright, now I'm just going to hold all of this to make sure that it's nice and settling. And then I've got to figure out where I'd like to put my sea glass, and I think I'm going to tuck mine right there leaning on that shell. It looks like quite a nice spot. It's prominent and it stands out against the white background. I've got a little bit of that silly pink feather attached there. Alright, so now I'm going to put that piece there. While that one is waiting to dry, I'm going to grab my baby wipe. Baby wipes are wonderful for everything. And I'm going to clean off the ends of my tweezers here just so that they don't get too much glue and get stuck. It's not quite dry yet, but my finished headpiece that I am going to wear. If I could see some of the back, I would cut it off. Because I can't see any of it, it might actually be a good idea for me to go through and put more glue on it just to hold it into place. I'm going to trim this corner though, because I am a little bit concerned that you can see that one. And again, it doesn't hurt to add more glue just to hold everything into place, I think. Thank you so much for crafting with Mermaid Tears. I hope that you had as much fun being creative as I did coming up with the craft for you today. Here are a couple of other head ideas. There is this one here, which sits this way, and then I have this one here, which sits up this way. So have yourselves a wonderful day.